Hi, I'm certified life coach Dewan J of the High Vibrations Only platform. What you're about to watch is an open coaching session that was actually filmed on TikTok. I pray that the information in the video that you're about to watch will inform, inspire, and ignite you to become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so that you're abreast of all future content coming from me. I'll see you in there. Let's go. So in this series, we have walked through the application process. Kai, what's happening? We have walked through the training phase, and now here we are at Fight Night. There are 2 episodes or 2 conversations after this one left in this series. Next week we will walk through the prelims, and after that we'll walk through your fight, the main event. We're going to walk through this, and we had to walk through slowly because in the middle of the biggest fights of our lives, a lot of us give up on these fights due to mindset. A lot of us give up on these fights due to lack of resilience or a lack of know-how to get to the next level. J.E. Freeman, what's happening? Baseball Vibes, what's happening? Welcome in. And we had to walk through this slowly so that we can not only get into the right mind frame to fight, but to sustain the mindset to fight. It's not about getting into the mindset. It's not about hyping yourself up or getting to that motivational phase where you have the gas to actually fight, but it's about the sustainment. After you have declared yourself a fighter, after you have had your first professional fight or even your first amateur fight, a lot of us then walk around and we start to rest on our laurels. But it's now the time to double down on the training. It's now the time to start to elevate and figure out, how can I maintain this momentum to take me to the next level, into the next fight, into the next thing that's going to arise my way. So tonight, welcome to Fight Night, y'all. Welcome to Fight Night. And during this conversation, I want to examine what should be happening on Fight Night. A lot of people think that MMA fighters or boxers, they sit and they start to like ratchet themselves up, but this is actually the worst thing that you can do. When you're at Fight Night, it's now a time to find your place of zen. And I know this is a strange mindset, and it goes against everything in human nature for you to relax at the point of impact or the point of contention or the point in which you have to have a confrontation with a problem or person. But I'd like to submit to you today that your mind state and in addressing the problems in your life, your mindset, when it comes to the confrontation, your mindset going into the fight is exactly how you're going to fight. If we begin to hype ourselves up and we get hyper aggressive, where our wounds become weapons. If we become hyper defensive, where we're having trust issues. If we become hyper aggressive, where we're having anger issues. Where we're becoming hyper aggressive to the point that we push everybody around us away, then we are in a dangerous mindset, because our cut man, our trainer, our entourage, the people who have supported us, the people who have pushed us so far in this life, they all get robbed. They get robbed of credit. They get robbed of effort. They get robbed of appreciation. They get robbed of gratitude. They get robbed of you as a person. So it's here that I must caution, and we must take a pause to recognize our mind and our heart posture. Because if we're not operating from a space of gratitude, if we're not operating from a space of joy, realizing that there is triumph in the training, everything that has led us here to this moment, everything that has led us up to the point of fighting plays a part in this fight. There was a man named Vaughn. And Vaughn was getting ready for his first professional fight, and he trained 100% every day. He gave it his all. He went there, and he broke some bones, and he sweat, and he bled, and he cried, and it was tough, and he thought about giving up, and he had to motivate himself to get there some days, and finally he got to the night of his fight. This night, he got to fight night, and hours before the event, he realized that the fight was canceled. His trainers had to go tell him, his coaches had to go tell him that the fight was canceled, and he was crushed. And they tried to put the positive spin on things. They tried to life coach him. They tried to motivational speak to him. They tried to therapy him. They tried to say, hey, look at the silver lining, you get more time, but he didn't care. Because he was gearing himself up. The camp that he went through, the pain that he went through, the tears that he went through, all led him to this moment. And it felt like this was another one of those things in which society was going to rob him. It felt like another failed relationship. It felt like another disappointing friendship. It felt like a divorce. It felt like his parents not believing in him. It felt like his coaches not giving him an opportunity. It felt like that the situations around him were set up once again to rob him. So his coaches tried to comfort him. You ever been in a situation where something happened to you and you were injured, mentally or emotionally, and the people around you attempted to console you, but what they were saying to you wasn't good enough? It's like you didn't know me. It's like you weren't there when I was sweating. It's like you weren't there when my heart was broken. It's like you weren't there. It's like you didn't appreciate the fact that I'm putting in effort, and when I'm finally ready to throw punches back at life, life moves. The goalpost moves. So his coaches, finally, they were working, they were struggling because they didn't want to let him down. They didn't want to let his effort be neglected. They didn't want to let his work ethic be neglected, his drive to be neglected. They didn't want it to go for naught. They didn't want it to go in vain. Snakes boy, what's happening? Welcome in. Willows, what's up? Welcome in. So finally, they found him a fight. And it was a month later, and they found him. They found a tournament where they were running smokers. And for those of y'all that are unfamiliar with the fight game, smokers are just exhibition fights. They don't really count towards going to a championship or anything of that nature. But it was his first fight, and it was a month later. And once he got that fight, he was the happiest he had ever been. And the people around him tried to get him or tried to understand his mindset. They were, why are you so happy? He was like a kid in a candy store. He was like tax season and the check finally hit. It was like some of us with the PPP loans. It was like some of us getting the stimulus inside of our accounts. He was that happy. He was, hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna win. And they couldn't understand his mindset. And he articulated. He dropped one of the coldest bars ever. And I need you to put this in a point. I need you to put his words in a point. My triumph was in my training. My triumph was in my training. In other words, in today's society, once we start to realize that we are coming up for one of the biggest fights in our lives, I need you to take the mentality and the mindset that your triumph was in your training. In other words, the fact that you had made the decision to fight, the fact that you had applied to fight, to begin, the fact that you had begun to train and condition your mind and your heart and your body to fight actually gave you the win. Let me prove it. When you start to train to fight, you started to do things that you had never done before. Daughter Zion, what's up? Welcome in. Liz, what's up? Welcome in. When you started to train, you had started to do things that you had never done before. You stepped outside of your comfort zone. You're all of a sudden you're looking better in the mirror. All of a sudden you're feeling more confident in that dress. Gabby, what's up? Welcome in. You're starting to feel more confident in that dress. You're finding yourself fitting jeans that you couldn't fit since high school, and as a result of that, your swagger went to another level. You started to actually uphold the standards to the people around you that you set from the very beginning. You started to make people treat you with a microcosm of respect. You stopped becoming an emotional punching bag. You stopped becoming an emotional doormat, all because of this training. And here's what we have to rest on when it comes to fight night. When it's fight night, you have to realize that you're actually getting ready to go into the fight. But you have to begin to stack the wins that came along the way and realize that your triumph, your victory was in your training, and the fact that you're looking at this problem in the face, the fact that you are looking at the biggest fight of your life, the biggest heartbreak in your life, the biggest disappointment in your life, the abusive relationship, the overcoming the trust issues, the overcoming the isolation, recognizing that you have solid people in your corner. You are starting to take advantage of the resources around you. You actually put a paragraph down in the book that you were supposed to write. You actually started to file the paperwork for the LLC. You applied for some business grants. You re-enrolled in college. You are now looking at the biggest fight of your life, but you've already been winning. You've already been winning. And so all of these little steps that you were taking and visualizing yourself in the fight, visualizing yourself in the equipment, visualizing your hand being raised, visualizing the championship belt, all of the steps that you took to prepare you for these moments were actually small victories. So I'd like to submit to you today that your triumph was actually in your training. But let's look at it. Let's look at what has to happen. Okay, before you get to fight night, the day before fight night is usually when the weigh-in happens, and here is actually the beginning of the fight. Here's the actual beginning of the fight is the day before, because there's the weigh-in. But prior to that, you've been monitoring. You've actually been monitoring your weight. In other words, you've been monitoring the weight that you've carried. You've been balancing the weight. You've been, okay, I can put on a little more muscle mass here. Here, I can trim some fat here. I can, in other words, Lotus, what's happening? In other words, I'm monitoring the weight that I'm carrying. In other words, I'm building muscle, right? And I'm building strength and I'm building endurance. These are things in my life that are adding to me. These are the supportive friends. This is the journaling. This is the meditation. This is the prayer. This is the fasting. This is the resilience that have been built as a result of these things that have happened to you already. You're starting to pack on muscle. But at the same time you're packing on muscle, you're trimming fat. And here's where we get in trouble. A lot of people come to the scales overweight because they didn't trim enough fat. They didn't cut off the relationships that they should have cut off. They allowed people to hang on to them a little too long. They stayed in toxic situations and toxic friend groups and toxic group chats and host toxic lives on this very app, for a little too long. And now, in addition to your gains, you didn't transition. Now, in addition to the strength that you're displaying, the muscle mass that you put on, you look down at the scale and you start to disqualify yourself. That's a bar. You start to disqualify when a fighter doesn't fit into the weight class, they're disqualified from the fight. And a lot of us are, quite frankly, disqualifying ourselves because when we look down at the scale, the number is not what we expect it to be. Why? Because in addition to the muscle that we carry, we're still carrying fat that we don't need to carry. We're still carrying anger towards somebody that blocked us 3 months ago. We're still carrying around anxiety from fearing not being good enough or fearing what's about to happen. We're still carrying around depression from a mistake that we made a decade ago that we haven't forgiven ourselves for. We're still carrying around trauma from abusive relationships. We're still carrying around trauma and guilt from people that we let go. We're still carrying around imposter syndrome and camouflaging and putting on a mask as if we're being humble. And as we carry these things, and these things begin to infect our skin cells and they become toxic to us, and they are actually disqualifying us mentally and emotionally from the fight well before it happens physically. So the fight actually starts the night before? Do I need to drop a couple extra pounds? Do I need to block John out of the phone so he can't text me what you're doing at 2 a.m.? Do I need to unfollow Kim and Susie and all of them so that I'm not tempted to slide into the DMs based off of bikini pictures and fitness updates? Do I need to finally call my boy Joe and be like, yo, bro, if you're going to cheat on your wife, you can't sleep on my couch tonight? Do I need to stop asking for what the tea is inside of the group chat from somebody else's drama? Why am I carrying around these things that I no longer need to carry? Why have I not transitioned into something that's going to benefit me for the fight? Why is it that I didn't up my cardio? In other words, put my heart in its proper condition. Why did I not put my mind in its proper condition? So now here I am on the eve of the fight. And I'm getting ready to disqualify myself because I haven't trimmed the unnecessary things. Let's walk through it. Let's talk about it. To make weight healthily, there's some things that you have to do. You have to stay hydrated, but you have to eat clean foods and limit or modify your activity. Okay? What does that look like? Eating clean foods in healthy timetables. Now, I've coached a few bodybuilding champions in my day, and what would happen is they'd be like, yeah, I'm going on this diet and I'm eating less times, and I'm like, no, you're doing the wrong thing. The right intent, but the wrong thing puts us in a bad position. Okay, so you cut the sugars, you cut the processed foods, and you cut down on salt. You cut the sugar, and when you cut the sugar, that means that you're being too nice. You're allowing your boundaries and your morals to consistently be violated out of love, or because you don't want to look like the bad person, or because you don't want to be looked at as a jerk, or you don't want somebody to leave your life. So we end up being nice for no reason. We end up allowing things that go against our moral code and things that go against our moral compass to be taken for granted. We allow our generosity to be manipulated. We allow mental stress, emotional stress, triggers, anger, depression, and anxiety for the sake of somebody else's feelings, for the sake of somebody else's happiness, for the sake of someone else being comfortable around us, for the sake of someone else being content around us. We end up being too nice.
Go to the mic.
We end up being too nice. And because we're too nice, we find ourselves on the salty end of the stick. We find ourselves crying at night, hugging pillows, letting our makeup run. We find ourselves lonely. We find ourselves with nobody being able to relate to what it is that we're going through because these people are benefiting from our lack of boundaries. We cut the processed foods. In other words, we break patterns. We break patterns. And we have to break these patterns because if we don't break the patterns of the processed foods, or if we don't break the patterns of our lives, if we don't break the patterns of not setting boundaries, if we don't break the patterns of not proper vetting, if we don't break the patterns of not feeling worthy and not feeling good enough or not feeling intentional, or not operating out of gratitude, or operating in a sense of purpose for a purpose in a purposeful season. If we don't break these patterns, then we're just going to repeat the same cycle. We're just going to find ourselves spinning, running on the hamster wheel of life and wondering why we are not getting anywhere, why we are not growing, why we are not progressing. So we have to cut the processed foods. In other words, I'm not going to continue to eat the same thing over and over again because it's not good. And as a result, I'm going to disqualify myself from the fight because I weigh too much. And then we have to cut down the salt. And here's where a lot of us get in trouble. A lot of us get in trouble when we don't cut the salt because our tongues have become sharp. We get in trouble because our wounds have become weapons, and we camouflage it as being brutally honest. We camouflage it as I'm sarcastic. We camouflage it and hide behind the fact, oh, you should just accept me as I am. No. I explained to y'all last week how everybody is an option. And it's up to you to become an undeniable option. It's up to you to cut the salt, to cut some of the venom that comes out of your mouth. It's up to you to cut some of the mean things and the nasty things that we do and say to people in order for us to cut this off. Because usually what happens is the sarcastic friend, usually what happens is the brutally honest friend, the people who goes out of their way and the wounds have become weapons. These people usually end up lonely. These people usually end up isolated. These people usually end up with a life full of regret from pushing people away. So then they injure themselves. And then they give up because they can't figure out what the problem is. Well, it's because you're carrying around too much excess. So when you jump on the scale, you take your shirt off and you're getting ready to flex because you're at the weigh-in. Did you cut the processed foods? Did you cut the sugar? Did you cut the salt? Because if you didn't, it's going to show. The second part of making sure that you maintain weight is staying hydrated, drinking plenty of water. In other words, I need to consume my life with things that are going to edify me. I need to fill my life with things that are going to build me up. I need to constantly take in sources of nourishment, sources of hydration. I need to keep my joints in optimal form. I need to keep my tendons and my muscles properly lubricated so that they may function at peak performance during fight night. I need to drink plenty of water, things that are going to be beneficial. How many books did you read this year, last year? How many seminars did you attend? Did you go to counseling like you said that you were gonna? Have you put in place a healthy support system? Do you have people around you that you can trust? Do you have people holding you accountable? Do you have people that can console you in the method in which you need to be consoled? Do you have friends that understand your love language? Do you have friends that will pour back into you as much as you will pour back into them? What am I consuming? Some of us out here, instead of drinking water, we're hydrating with tequila. We're hydrating with things that are going to give us cognizant dissonance. We're hydrating with things that are going to allow us to escape our current reality. Not realizing that once we're sober-minded again, the problem really didn't go anywhere. In fact, it magnified itself because now, not only do I have the initial problem, not only do I have the regret, but now I have to add procrastination on top of it. Because when I was trying to escape, the problem not only went anywhere, but now I'm behind because I took my mind away from it, because I disassociated from what it was that I was actually going through, and I tried to medicate. Now I'm 2 days behind instead of just one. Now the weight has become a little more. Now gravity is starting to actually sink in. Now the weight of the world has become a little bit heavier because every day is going to bring its own set of challenges. And the time that I waste not solving these problems, the time that I waste attempting to disassociate from these problems, the time that I waste acting like these things aren't there, they just magnified themselves. Okay, let me move. Cut unnecessary activities that could dehydrate you or add weight. Here's where we get in trouble. In order to stay relevant, we gossip. In order to stay accepted, goddess of love, welcome in. In order to stay accepted or stay in the cool kids corner, we're mean to people when it goes against our heart. In order to stay accepted, we say things to people, or we do things to people that are against what we actually believe. And These activities actually dehydrate you. You're not operating at your highest vibrational level at that point. You're not operating in what your purpose is, in the will of God, however you want to put it. We're not operating at optimum or peak performance at that moment because we choose cool. We choose acceptance. We choose external validation. We choose the things that are going to make us appear as if our life is together. Mean Girls, one of these movies that taught a bar. That entire movie was a bar. But a lot of us are real life mean girls, or a lot of us are real life mean boys or dudes, or however you want to phrase it. A lot of us are doing this in real life where I believe something, but because society tells me I should do this, I do that. I'm a real life nice person, but because this gets me more clicks on Instagram, or because this gets me more likes on TikTok, or because more people flood my lives if I operate from a toxic place than I am if I'm just myself. These are dehydrating activities. These are activities that are adding nothing to your performance, adding no value to your body, to your mind, to your spirit. But we do them because it packs a room. We do it because I want to be talked about in the next live over. We do it because my name is going to be the name on everyone's lips. Well, on fight night, your name can be on everyone's lips, but you have two options. Okay, your name can be on everybody's lips because you had the fight of the night and you finished in spectacular fashion. You performed well. People know, oh my God, people know that you're a skilled fighter. People know that you're nice with these. People know that you're known for having a certain swag and a certain style and a certain flair when you fight. People know this, and you end up knocking out what the problem is. You end up eradicating the problem. Your story end up becoming a testimony. Your story became a testament of strength and resilience, or you can be on the other side of it. You can be the person that got knocked out. You can be the person that succumbed to temptation. You can be the person that succumbed to vanity. You could be the person that succumbed to anxiety or depression. Either way, people are going to be talking. So how is it that you want to be viewed? Are you going to stay true to self and finish? Or are you going to allow society to finish you? All right, that got a little too deep. They got a little too deep, but I'll talk about it on Monday. The third thing is you have to set metrics in place. Anybody that I deal with on a one-on-one level, anybody that I coach, I have metrics in place. Hey, have you done this? Did you do this? We have to meet this before I can give you the next thing. We have to do this before I give you the next thing. Metrics keep you accountable. They not only keep you accountable, but metrics also serve as confidence. They serve as inspiration. They serve as a self-esteem booster. Why? Because once you accomplish this one thing, we're going to celebrate. Anybody that I've ever coached, hey, did you get this done? And then I make it a big deal so that we can celebrate. It's important that these things happen because you need to realize that not only are you rooting for you, not only are you fighting for you, but I'm fighting for you too. And once you accomplish something, once you get something done, it is a step in the right direction. Think about, for those of y'all that are watching that are parents, think about when your baby first learned to walk, right? They start out wiggly leg and afraid. And when they take one step towards something, yes, you did it. It's a sign of encouragement to the kid to keep doing it. And then when they first start to learn to walk, without the aid of a walker or holding hands or something, when they're doing it by themselves, their first steps might be 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, but you make that a big deal. So why are we not doing that for our own mentality and our own emotions? Every step that you take towards purpose, every step that you take towards peace, every step that you take towards progress should be celebrated. These are the activities. These are the activities that actually hydrate you. These are the activities to ensure that you're performing at peak level. These are the activities, Sky, what's happening? These are the activities that actually ensure that you're keeping the momentum like we talked about last week. These are the activities that you need to be celebrating. Nope, I don't want to gossip today. Nope, you're not going to talk about that person in front of me. No, I don't care about what the tea is that happened in this live. No, I don't. I can't hang out with you because I know that anytime that I hang out with you, I end up doing things that I don't want to do. How many walks of shame am I going to have to take before you realize that this is toxic? How many times am I gonna go to the club just to let my hair down and I wake up in a stranger's bed? Uh-oh. How much money have I spent by literally throwing it in the air, fellas? How much alcohol do I consume until I'm numb to my own problem and then I go do something more destructive? Every time I pick up the phone and it says this person's name. But the actual fight is blocking the person. The actual fight is either changing the atmosphere or changing the dynamic of the relationship with that person. Every time I hang out with this group of friends, my bank account's $1,000 lighter. Every time I hang out with this particular group of friends, I have to go to the hospital for a metacarpal fracture because there was a fist fight. Every time I hang out with this group of friends, I'm in danger of going to jail. Every time that I hang out with this particular group of friends, I just feel wrong because we're talking about things that we shouldn't talk about. We're in somebody else's business. We're casting judgment. How many times are we going to repeat this cycle? Instead, I'd rather meditate and read. Instead, I'd rather play board games with my children. Instead, I'd rather, you name it. There are several different activities that you can do that keeps you in purpose, in character, and in the fight. But every time that this happens, I need to be celebrating this. Girl, yeah, I finally had to block him. But why did it take him disrespecting you for you to have to block him? Why did it take him cheating for you to have to block him? Why did it take her posting that bikini pic for you to realize that she was disrespectful and not good for your purpose, King? Why did it take you having to get a restraining order put against you from a dancer that doesn't even know your name, King? Why does it take something dramatic for you to throw a punch for yourself? Why does it take something that could cost you your freedom, cost you your resources, cost you your children, cost you your marriage? Why does it take something dramatic in order for us to take a step in the right direction? Girl, I finally had to block him. Oh yeah, let's go. We turn up for that. Why? You know what? I finally had to get that. Listen, I finally left. How many boundaries of yours? How many boundaries of yours were violated before you finally blocked her? How many boundaries? How many times were you disrespected? How many times is she gonna talk about your mama's potato salad before you finally being like, hey, nah, no more. Coach T, what's happening? Welcome in. Curvy, what's up? Welcome in. Why is it that it's drama that leads to this decision and not a decision to fight for purpose, a decision to be a better person? Why is it that it's always us on the last limb before we finally make a decision to fight for self? Antonio, what's happening? Thank you for the heart. Why is it? So I have to do things and I have to keep track of things and I have to celebrate the things that are going to allow me to become a better fighter, a better person. I have to do these things. Let me move. All right. The second thing that happens the night before the weigh-in or the weigh-in. The second thing that happens is we have to check our gear. We have to ensure that we're equipped with everything that we're going to need for fight night. Right? Remember, the fight actually starts the day before the fight. Okay, so after I've made sure that I'm properly hydrated and I'm checking my metrics and I'm making decisions to actually be a fighter, right? The second thing I need to do is check my equipment. Now, what happens is, what am I going to need? I'm going to need a mouth guard. Okay, I need to ensure that I have the right clothing. I need to ensure that I have the right equipment. I need to bring extras for, buckets, Vaseline, first aid kit, rag towels, things of that nature. And I have to bring fruit. Because after my weigh-in, I'm probably going to be at my body's end, and I'm going to need to replenish. Let's talk about this. I need my mouth guard. Okay, my mouth guard protects my teeth from being knocked out, number one. It protects a broken jaw, number two. And it protects your gums from being stabbed from your teeth, or it keeps your tongue from being bitten off. That is the purpose of a mouth guard. Put this in a point. My proclamations are either poisonous or prosperous. They're either poisonous or prosperous. Now, I can't forget my mouth guard. In other words, I need to watch my mouth. Not only do I need to watch my mouth, but I need to watch the mouths of those people around me. Biblically speaking, the power of life and death lies within the tongue, biblically speaking. But also, for those of y'all that are spiritual and that like to manifest and assume and attract and all these other things out there, for those of you out there, if you put something into the universe, this is the thing that is going to happen. So I need to be able to, I have to watch my mouth. There's no negativity. How is it that I can say that this is a safe space and I'm only operating out of positive vibes, yet I destroy and I judge? How is it that I can say that I'm a Christian, I'm a spiritualist, I'm a pure person, yet everybody that offends me is anything but a child of God? How is it that I say that I'm going to start this business and this business is going to bear fruit and this business is going to be successful, yet I doubt out loud. I speak negativity towards myself. I allow others to give me backhanded compliments. How's your little business going? How's your little book going? How's your little podcast going? How's your little college experiment going? No. I need you to watch your mouth when you talk to me, because if power of life and death lies within the tongue, and it does, what I say to myself is going to be a reflection of the environment that I find myself in. How I talk to myself, how I think about myself, how I view my capabilities. Let's go, contributing to the live goal. What I view of myself is going to be an average of what everybody around me views. So no, you can't give me the backhanded compliment and demean what I am attempting to do as little. No, I'm not going to allow you to tell me that I can't do something. There's no two greater motivational words than you can't. Because my answer to that is two words: watch me. And I need you to have an attitude about it. I need you to be assertive about it. I need you to be aggressive about the way that people talk to and around you. Because here's what happens, right? Growing up, our family, okay, personal story. Growing up, right? I grew up in Boston, and when people asked me what I wanted to be growing up, the truth of the matter is, at that age, I did not know. I didn't know. I just knew that I had a really good memory. I liked to read. I had a pretty good imagination, and I could play football, right? So when I told people I wanted to be a rapper, a poet, a football player, they were like, okay. But the minute that my mindset started to shift to, I don't know, maybe the governor, maybe the president, people would, well, what about going after something more practical? It is practical. What about this? What I didn't realize is that at that time, at that young age, at an impressionable age, I was being conditioned to dim my own light. I was being conditioned to not reach for the stars. But now, these same people who break down my books in colleges, the same people who break down my poems, the same people who were watching as I was in the newspaper for being the best poet in the city, the same people who watched me as I was running for 125 yards per season in college, these same people are coming to me, and now I'm looking at them in the face, and instead of saying, don't reach so high, I'm looking at them and be like, don't tell me that the sky is the limit when there's footprints on the moon. You can't tell me what my limits are because you haven't been there, because your mind can't fathom going there, because your little brain has been conditioned with a poverty mindset where you'd rather not take the risk because your fear of losing. I'd rather plant and watch it grow. I'd rather try something. You fail at 100% of the things that you never try. So now, as will I come talk to you? Yeah, for sure. Can you send me like 15 to 20 copies of you? Yeah, for sure. And I do it with a smile on my face. And I'm not saying this as a flex, and I'm not saying this because I hold something over them. It's not that. I'm just using this as an example, and I'm trying to submit to you that you can't forget your mouthpiece. You can't forget that words matter. You can't forget that when you look at yourself in the mirror every day, to tell yourself that I am beautiful, that I am smart, I am intelligent, I am qualified, I can do this. Don't forget your mouthpiece. Let me move. Clothing. Now, the clothing is what you know what you're going to wear in the fight. But see, the clothing is for the pre-fight, okay? You have to bring some sweats, a warm pair of socks, a beanie, because you're setting yourself up for the warm-up, okay? You're in a hoodie, right? Think back to the fights that you've watched on pay-per-view. You see them in there, and they got a hoodie on, and they're they're shadow boxing, or they're hitting mitts, or they're hitting a small bag, right? They're getting their timing down and things like that. We'll get into that in a little bit, but don't forget the clothes. One of the worst things that you can do is start a fight and you're cold, right? Because your muscles and your joints are still stiff, because the body temperature is too cold to actually get into something and start productively. Put this on a point. The right clothing or covering keeps correct conditions. The right clothing or covering keeps the correct conditions. What does that mean? It means that when I'm covered, some of us are covered in prayer. Some of us are covered in determination. 40, what's happening? Some of us are covered in, but what you don't want to be covered in is resentment. You don't want to, Lexi, what's happening? You don't want to, Jada, what's up? Welcome in. You don't want to be covered in regret. You don't want to be covered in anger. You don't want to be covered in anxiety or depression or out of fear. So when I'm saying I'm checking my bag for the right clothes, I need to ensure that my hoodie is there to make a statement. My sweatpants are there to make a statement. I need to ensure that it's going to set the correct conditions in order for me to operate at peak performance. So I'm going to have to start to get warm. And here's where we get into sweaty situations. Here's where we're going to start to bring the sweat a little bit. Here's where we're in a situation that it may have raised your blood pressure, but instead of cursing the person out, you went to prayer. Here's where you end up in a toxic situation in which the people around you want to gossip and laugh and joke about how such and such was drunk, or how such and such was high, or how such and such consistently gets cheated on, or how such and such is constantly out there giving their most precious parts to the most people. And you set up and you set the boundary and you say, no, This person's not here to defend themselves. We're not doing it. Here's what I need to make sure that I'm covered so that I can stand on principle, so that I can stand on what I know is correct. And that way I can't be accused. That way I can't be accused of being a bad friend. I can't be accused of taking part in the gossip. And in fact, I took a stand towards character. I took a stand towards virtue. I took a stand towards integrity. I took a stand towards courage, and celebrating these small victories of you setting boundaries, celebrating the fact that you won't allow one of your friends or somebody who you call a friend or a loved one or a family member to be gossiped about in your presence builds the bond of the relationship, because now I'm getting ready to warm up, and the situation might get a little hot. It might cause a little sweat. It might cause a little friction. I might have to hit the bag and tap the mitts a couple of times and ruffle a few feathers in order to change the scenario. But I promise you that my atmosphere is going to determine my altitude, and I refuse to be a person who sits back on my hands and on my mouth because I'm not equipped and I'm not covered with enough courage or enough integrity or enough willpower to change the dynamic of the atmosphere that I'm in. I refuse. I refuse to make a victim out of somebody else, because I remember what it felt like. I refuse to allow somebody else to become a victim. I refuse to allow my trainers and my camp and my cut men and my entourage. I refuse to let them down, because I remember what it felt like to be let down. I remember what it felt like to not learn the lesson from Tony, so Tyrone had to teach it to me. I remember not learning the lesson from Courtney, so Kim taught it to me. I remember not being shown how to be a father, so I refuse to allow my son to go through that. I remember what it looks like watching a single mom struggle, having to work doubles and leave me with anybody that would keep me. So I refuse to allow that to happen. But in order for that to happen, I have to bring the correct clothes so that I can start the fire, so that I can start to ruffle the feathers. Every generational curse that was ever broken started with somebody getting out of bed. Every victory that was ever fought started with somebody getting dressed. Every stronghold that's ever been torn down started with somebody lifting their fists. Let me move. Also in my bag, I need to ensure that I have my gloves, my file gear, the thing that's going to protect, my most private parts. Pavos, what's happening? Welcome in. Hand wraps, gauze, knuckle padding. Put this in a point. Protecting yourself requires proper preventative measures. Some boxers don't like the amateur circuit because you have to wear headgear. Some boxers or fighters don't like the amateur circuit because they require you to wear that little thing that goes in between your legs to protect your jewels, right? But what we don't realize is that future generations of me are housed there. And if that takes an injury, then generations, oh my, that's a bar. Generations, I have to protect myself today so that my offspring and my offspring's offspring can be protected. In order for there to have a chance of a legacy being built, I have to protect myself today. I have to wear this thing, and it might look funny to some. It might look weird to some. It might look as if I'm going against the status quo. You might even laugh. But in order to protect my future generations, I have to ensure that I don't get injured in that particular part, right? Because, getting hit there can cause like the cancer and this is deep. In order for me to not get the cancer, in order for me to be able to produce offspring, in order for me to be able to produce for generations, I have to protect myself today. So yeah, I'm going to wear the cup. Yes, I'm going to wear the strap there. I'm going to wear, whatever device that they have that's in regulations with the rules for me to protect myself there, because I can't allow somebody else's hand. I can't allow somebody else's hand to actually or accidentally cost me my future. So I have to ensure that I have the proper preventative measures. I'm wearing the headgear because I'm going to get hit, right? And my mentality might take a hit, and that's okay. I'm going to get hit, and I may not be able to use my jaws the right way. I'm going to get hit, and it might make me punch drunk. I might get hit, and it might throw off my equilibrium, but it's not going to cause a traumatic brain injury. It's not going to cause something in which I'm not in full control of my faculties later. It's at least going to diminish that risk. So here I am standing here on fight night, and I need to ensure that my protective equipment is in place, because these preventative measures is not about today. It's not about today. It's about the future. Too many of us have short-sighted views. The suicide rate in this country is so high because of a short-sighted view. The depression rate in this country is so high because of a short-sighted view. The unemployment rate, the joblessness rate is at this country is at an all-time high because there's too much of a short-sighted view. I have a client, and this dude's been jobless for like 6 months. And we were having a conversation. And I said to him, hey, why not work part-time here and part-time over here? And that's going to be more than enough for you to start a savings. And at the same time, you can bolster your resume with job experience and skills that you're learning. You can then negotiate for schools based off. And this man was like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm 40 years old. I don't want to do that. This is the short-sighted view. In other words, I have to put protective measures in place for my future. Anytime that I'm looking at today, then my purpose is not in view. Then my future is futile. Anytime that I can only look at today, this is actually sociopathic, if I'm being, if to put it in a clinical sense. Anytime that I'm only looking at today, my view is too short. Let me move. You bring the bucket, you bring the Vaseline, you bring the first aid kit, the rags, and the towels, because you're preparing yourself to heal yourself. Does this sound familiar? There's so much talk about being your own hero. There's so much talk about self-validation. There's so much talk about knowing that you're good enough and knowing that you're worthy enough, and then we get punched in the face. What happens then? Who's there to heal you? Are you in a dependent type status where you're relying on somebody else to come and heal you? No. What I'm trying to tell you today is, on fight night, when I'm checking my gear, I'm ensuring that everything that I need to heal myself or to help myself heal is coming with me to the fight. In other words, my prayer game is coming with me to the fight. My resilience game is coming with me to the fight. My confidence is coming with me to the fight. My technical expertise is coming with me to the fight. In other words, everything that could potentially happen from me being punched, or me taking an unexpected hit, or me not being fast enough, or in other words, I am putting things in place to heal myself for when I slip up, when I make the mistake, when I pick up the phone at 1:30 and I'm back at James's house. When it was supposed to be a one-night stand, and now I'm debating between an abortion and adoption. When I have to hear my mom, my aunt, and my uncle and them tell me, I told you so. Everything that I need to heal myself is coming with me to the fight. Everything that I need is coming with me. The last thing that I make sure is in my bag. No, what's happening? Welcome in. The last thing that I need to ensure is in there is fruit. Put this in a point. Bearing ripe fruit will always replenish. Bearing ripe fruit will always replenish. In other words, I must take care of myself. I must, after I've dehydrated myself, after I've struggled to make weight, after I'm qualified for the fight, I am going to begin to eat fruit, because the things that I have poured out, the material support that I've provided, the emotional support that I provided, the friendship that I provided, the love that I provided, the sense of family, the safe environment that I provided is not always reciprocated to me. So sometimes these things look like a sacrifice, but that's okay. The dynamic of our relationship is going to change, and this is one of the fights that I have to. But in order to do that, I have to make myself whole again. So in order for that to happen, I have to bear ripe fruit. In other words, I have to operate from a sense of love. I have to operate from a sense of peace. I have to operate from a sense of purpose. I have to operate from a sense of patience. And after I've dehydrated myself and I'm no longer in a comfortable position, in order for me to perform at peak performance, in order for my muscles to be properly lubricated, in order for my muscles to remain full, in order for my joints to be properly nourished, and for me to risk or not risk further injury, I have to bear ripe fruit. And because I've been in a situation before, the lesson that I learned was to not depend on anybody else to bring this fruit. I'm going to bring it myself. It doesn't matter that you were talked about. It doesn't matter that you were backstabbed. It doesn't matter that these people mean you absolutely no good. Guess what I'm doing? You're fired, and you're fired. And now I'm going to rest on the skills that I've learned, because I recognize that my triumph was actually in my training. And now here I am standing, looking better than I've ever looked before. Here I am standing, more intelligent than I've ever been before. Here I am standing, wiser than I've ever been before. Here I am standing, more determined than I've ever been before. I am ready to fight. But in order for me to perform at maximum level, in order for me to put myself in a position to win, I'm bringing the fruit myself. Okay. The third thing that happens on fight night is the warm up. Remember those clothes that I talked about earlier, right? Now we got the clothes on, right? We are beginning to warm up. We're going to start to do some dynamic stretching, right? We want to make sure that we don't pull a muscle, that we don't herniate a disc. We want to make sure that everything is in working order, right? Put this in a point. Peak performance begins pre-fight. Peak performance begins pre-fight. Right. So what I'm doing now is I am getting ready to actually get in the ring. Right. And this happens hours before I arrive early. I have somebody else dealing with my friends and my family. Right. Because I can't afford to be distracted here. In other words, I can't continue to pick up "what are you doing" text. I can't continue to pick up the phone from an ex. I can't continue to allow access to me from a situationship. I can't continue to allow access to me from people that don't believe in me. I can't continue to allow access to me from people that belittled my dream. I can't allow access to me from people that don't believe. So I have to set these boundaries in place so that I can get into a place of zen. So I show up hours before. And I'm walking around. I'm seeing. Kalo, what's happening? I'm seeing myself in the ring. I'm seeing myself in the cage. I'm doing a walk around in the arena. I need to understand the environment that I'm in, because now I'm in a different location. I'm in an unfamiliar environment. So I'm going to show up some hours early after I've weighed in. And now I'm getting familiar. Okay, the lights come from this angle right here. Okay. This many people are going to be sitting here. Okay, all right. Let me get in here and walk around to see what the canvas looks like so that I don't trip. Let me get in here and figure out where I'm going to be coming in from. Let me do something crazy and stand in the middle of the fighting environment. And before the crowd starts to file in, before the music, before the lights hit, I actually stand there with my hand raised because I can visualize myself as the winner. I'm placing my mindset and I'm getting familiar with the environment that's around me because the things have changed. And I learned 2 boyfriends ago to not be caught by the unexpected. I learned the last time that my aunt borrowed money and didn't pay me back to not be caught by the unexpected. I learned the last time that my best friend, air quotes, doubted my dreams to cut him off. So I'm placing myself in a place of zen, right? So now here I am at the warm up. So I'm gonna cut off drinking water, right? I'm only gonna sip water from now on. because I should be properly hydrated, remember? The day before. So now I'm only going to be sipping water. I'm going to get up. I'm going to start to stretch. I'm going to start to sip the water. I'm going to move around a little bit and start to get loose and limber in an organic state. Right? A lot of times when people get knocked out, it's because they're too hype. Right? And they're going in and they're all tense and they're moving very robotic. But the person that can fight the fight from an organic spot has a little wiggle room. You know what I'm saying? They got a little swagger about them. They're walking around with confidence. And we'll talk about this next week when I talk about actually being in the fight. Right? Second thing, I wrap up. Now I'm going to wrap my hands. I'm going to wrap my hands. Put this in a point. The right wrapping releases power and protection. The right wrapping releases power and protection. What do you mean? The reason that fighters' hands are wrapped the way that they're wrapped is because when you look, it actually becomes a part of their hand, right? You see some lines going through and you see some lines going around. And then you see what you're actually doing is you are binding all of your loose moving ligaments together. Because when I throw the punch, because I'm ready to fight back. So when I actually start to throw the punch, my fist is going to absorb the complete shock. So I'm binding everything together. In other words, mentally and emotionally, I am binding my training. I am binding my resilience. I am binding all of the hurt, all of the depression, all of the anxiety. I'm binding these things together. So finally, when I get ready and I get my opportunity to throw that first punch, I'm not risking further injury to myself. How many people do you see walking around in cast like this, right? These 2 fingers are cast and these 3 fingers are free because they have that metacarpal fracture. What happened was they threw a punch and the punch didn't land the way that they intended it to land. And because the joints and the ligaments were not freely moving, it actually caused injury to them. So now I'm going to start to wrap up. I'm going to start to bind all of these things together. I'm going to put myself in a place in which everything that I've been working for is going to work for me. And when I get ready to throw this blow, everything that has ever happened to me is coming with it. Everything that this fight has taken from me is coming with it. All the pain that is coming with it. But I can't risk further injury by doing this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to tape it through. I'm going to tape it around. I'm going to get it here. And here's what a lot of people don't know. Those that train in boxing or train MMA will tell you that usually what happens is the professional fighters, they'll put an extra 1 inch around the wrist. So when they throw a cross, there's no give in their fist. And that adds power to the punch. So what I'm saying is that my wrapping is strategic. It's protective. My wrapping, in addition to preparing me for the fight, my wrapping is actually going to add power to my punch. When I say that, I'm coming for everything that they said that I couldn't have. When I say that I'm coming to take back everything that was ever stolen from me. When I come and I say that I'm going to deal with the things, the generational curses that have plagued me for years, the poverty mindset that has plagued me for years, the manipulation that has plagued me for years, the being taken advantage of, the weak boundaries, the imposter syndrome, all of these things are going to be wrapped into this fist. So when I throw this blow, I only got to get one. But I'm wrapping up pre-fight. This strip of tape was for that boyfriend back in 2016. This strip of tape was for that woman that cheated on me in 2007. This strip of tape is for a poverty mindset. This strip of tape is for every time my family didn't believe in me. This strip of tape is for every failed business plan. This strip of tape is for every time I didn't get the business loan. This strip of tape is for every time that I procrastinated. Y'all not hearing me right now. What I'm trying to tell you is that when you rap and it's strategic, not only do you come with passion, not only do you come with purpose, but you come with all of that past pain. And once I finally make a connection with my target, everything is coming with it. There's strategy. But even this is zenful. Even this, when you see the fighters on pay-per-view, right? When you see the fighters on pay-per-view, when they're getting their fists wrapped, they got headphones on. They're just bobbing and they're letting the cut person do their thing. They're letting the referee do their thing, and they're kind of just listening to whatever it is that they're listening to. Some people listen to motivational speeches. Some people actually talk to themselves. Some people actually are listening to music. Some people are listening to classical music, believe it or not. But they're just in their zone. They're just letting the process happen. In other words, I'm going to organically release pain. I'm going to organically swing towards purpose. I'm going to organically fight. The next thing after your fists are wrapped, I'm going to gear up. Now I'm going to put my gear on. Right now I'm going to put the socks on, or if it's MMA, I'm going to put the shorts on. I'm going to put the gloves on. I'm going to put what I'm going to look like. Right. Put this in a point. My prepping dictates how far I can push. Right now that I've made sure that my equipment is in working order. And I make sure that my moral code is correct. I make sure that my coping skills are up to par. I ensure that my prayer and my meditations is on point. And I trust the things that are with me to prevent injury. Now I'm going to gear up. Now I need to see what it's going to look like. I have to make sure that my moral code is that in other words, I'm going to say and do things that I don't regret. I'm going to operate with a sense of purpose. I'm going to operate marching towards purpose at all points of my life. I'm going to operate from a space that I'm intentional about what I'm saying and what I'm doing. I'm on the social media app, Tinder, Christian Mingle, Farmer Knows, whatever. I'm going to be intentional about my swiping. When I'm having phone conversations, I'm going to be intentional about the information that I'm both giving and receiving. Lisa, let's go with the first gift and the rose. I appreciate you. Thank you. I'm going to be intentional about the conversations that I'm having. I'm going to be intentional and situationally selective about where I find myself, the environments that I find myself in. I'm going to be intentional about it, right? Because my preparation dictates how far I can actually push. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that my coping skills are up to par. Right? There's an exercise, and I talked about this before. There's an exercise that I give people that I coach that struggle with the fear of rejection, where I tell them, hey, go out and this week, over the course of the next 7 days, get told no 25 times. Get told no, and it doesn't matter. You call up. Hey, can I borrow $5 million? No? Oh, okay. Hey, will you come paint the side of my house pink? No? Oh, okay. But what's happening is you are reprogramming your brain to hearing the word no and realizing that it's not the end of the road. You're realizing that being rejected from something is not the end of the fight. Just because I get hit in the face, I might get hit with a nasty combo. I might get hit with bang, boyfriend cheating, bang, ex-girlfriend pregnant, bang, family doesn't believe in me, bang, I get kicked out of my parents. You might get hit with a bow, 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 nasty combo. But it doesn't mean that you're going to give up the fight. Being told no just stands for new opportunities or next opportunity. In other words, if I'm prepared and my coping skills are up to par, I'm going to bounce off of one thing and then bounce right into something else. I realize that once my coping skills are up to par and I am resilient and I'm still marching towards my purpose, that if nobody opens up a door for me, I'm going to kick it in. Just because I get hit doesn't mean that I'm going to lay down and give up the fight. So I have to ensure that my coping skills are a part of my gear package. I have to gear up. The next thing, my prayer and my meditation is on point. Now, just because you don't believe what I believe, it doesn't mean that this does not apply to you. Some of us are spiritual and meditating is the way to go. Some of us need to journal. Some of us need to leave voice notes to ourselves. Some of us have to say affirmations. Some of us, there's a combination of all of these things that work. And that's what has to happen. Fine. But I need to ensure that whatever prayer or version of meditation I use is on point. And I need to ensure that I have complete faith in that system. Why? Because here's your decompression method. Here's some of the things that you say during prayer and meditation that you wouldn't dare utter to another person. But if I don't trust it to say it to my best friend or my support system, I still have to get it out of my head. Journaling is a form of meditation. Affirmations is a form of meditation. So I have to ensure that my prayer and my meditation game is on point. And then I have to trust in everything that I am to prevent me from injury. There's a difference between being hurt and being injured. When you're hurt, it sucks for a little bit, right? You may physically wear damage. You may be sore there for, let's go with the friendship necklace. 3 times. Another one, she said. It hurts. It may be sore. There may be some bruising. There may be some swelling. But if I'm injured, it stops that very thing from happening. And meditation and prayer, or meditation or prayer, wherever you are in your spiritual, here's the difference between being hurt and being injured. Let me move. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grease up. Okay? I'm going to grease up. Put this on a point. Being hit hurts, but when they stick, I'm stuck. Being hit hurts, but when they stick, I'm stuck. Here's where your resilience comes in. The reason that fighters grease up, usually on the corner of the eyes, underneath the eyes, on the tip of the nose, and on the cheeks. The reason that they grease up is so that when they're impacted, the punch slides off of them. It doesn't remove the pain of the punch, but it stops it from sticking there. It stops it from you being measured to be hit again. Think of the Vaseline as the lesson being learned. So bang, you get hit with a jab, your head snaps back, or bang, you get hit with it like a nasty cross. And instead of sticking there, what actually happens is it slides off. And those of us that are actually on point, those of us that have trained to fight, knows that I might take a hit to give too. Because I know that when my situation is going to set up, and I know that this right cross is coming, I may have to eat this cross, but I'm going to give 2 licks back. So it could actually be strategy. You know what? I'm going to take this hit right now, but I know that I'm going to be better 6 months from now. I'm going to take this hit right now, but I'll be better a year from now. I'm going to take this hit right now, but I'll be better in the future. So sometimes I have to grease up and use that as part of my strategy. I am coming to fight with everything that I am. And if I know that I have a nasty counter punch, I might eat this punch in order to knock my problem out of the park. I might eat this punch in order to knock the situation out of my life forever. I might have to not hang out at the club with the boys and sacrifice not spending money so that I can be a millionaire a year from now. But I have to teach myself the discipline, right? I may have to sacrifice happy hours with the girls because I know that Tati and them gonna be out there, and every time we go out with her, we end up on an episode of Real Housewives. So no, I can't risk going to prison behind you. I may have to be called every name in the book except the child of God because I can't give this man attention because the last time that I fell for somebody who displayed traits like this, I ended up with a baby and by myself. I can't continue to funnel money that way. And I don't care. I don't care how long you've known me. I don't care that you used to change my diapers. I don't care that you've known me since I was knee high to a duck. I can't continue to enable your lack of discipline by displaying lack of discipline myself. So what I'm saying is these things, they hit us. And they hit us in the heart and they hit us in the head and they hit hard. But because I greased up pre-fight, The pain is not going to stick there. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to roll with it. And I'm going to throw two counter punches where I never have to deal with this problem again, because my boundaries are stronger, because my discernment is stronger, because my intuition can now be trusted, because my judgment can now be trusted, because I have foresight, because I have vision towards my future and towards my purpose. So I might take the hit today. I may take the hit in this round. But now I'm going to use that to my advantage. I know when you set up for that punch again, I know what's going to come. But because I greased up before the fight, I'm going to take it. I'm going to slide off of it, and I'm throwing two punches back of my own. We are in a fight, ladies and gentlemen. The next thing is going to happen. After you grease up, you're still in the locker room, right? You're going to start to shadow box. And then you're going to call a partner over. If your situation feels taller than you, you're going to have them hold their fist in front of your face so you get used to navigating around taller opponents, around taller situations. You're going to start to shadow box. Put this in a point. Isolated effort improves efficiency. Isolated effort improves efficiency. Let me be clear here. Notice how I said you're going to shadow box first by yourself and then with a partner. In other words, when things happen to us, we can't go running into isolation. We can't push everybody away. We can't withdraw and become hermits when things hurt us. When we get ready to gear up for a fight, we're going to need all of the support, the accurate support that we can get. We're going to need supportive and loving friends and family around us that actually believe in the vision, believe in the dream, that can believe in seeing me as a champion, right? So we isolate with our effort first. In other words, I may cry by myself, but eventually I need to talk about it. Whether that's to prayer, whether that's to a therapist, whether you're like me and you believe in theology and therapy. Whether you pick up the phone and call your coach, call your therapist. Right? So I might fight these battles, or these battles might appear as if I'm by myself. But because I've done all of this training, I've applied myself. I've been through the training camp. I've gotten the license, right? Now I'm in a shadow box by myself. I've got my gear on, so I know what I'm going to look like. Right? Some of the benefits of shadow boxing, it improves your form and your technique. I'm going to put this effort in because the last time I dealt with this situation, I lost 5 friends, a boyfriend, and a baby daddy. Right. The last time I dealt with this situation, I lost all 6 of my girlfriends. Right. The last time I dealt with this situation, family labeled me as a black sheep. So I'm going to shadow box now because I need to be able to navigate these things. And my muscle memory starts to take form and my technique gets perfected as I'm throwing. I know what it looks like in this gear, with these gloves to throw an uppercut. So I know the speed and the power that I need to deliver this punch. I know what it looks like to slip. I know what it looks like to parry. I know what it looks like to roll so that I can counter punch. I'm doing it in gear. This is the dress rehearsal. So I'm going to start to shadow box, right? I get improved balance and I get to relieve some stress because this is part of my warm up. Be little, what's happening, my guy? I'm going to start to know what this looks like in gear. So I'm going to start to shadow box by myself. And after I'm throwing a few punches, after I know what it feels like to be fluid, I'm going to call somebody else over that can mimic the movements of my opponents so that I can begin this dress rehearsal. So when I get to the ring, this isn't the first time tonight that I'm actually moving like this, right? Form and technique on point. Claudia, what's happening? Form and technique are on point. Muscle memory is on point. Balance is on point. And now I'm less stressed because I've seen myself in the gear. I've moved with the weight of these gloves. I've moved in these particular ring boots, or in bare feet if it's MMA. I know what it's like. The next thing, and these last two things are actually warnings. These last two things are actually warnings. Okay, no new strategy. No new strategy. We are at fight night. Right, the time to finalize our strategy was last week. Okay. I need to talk to my overthinkers out here. I need to talk to my second guessers, my people whose judgment and intuition are always in question by them. Here on the brink of our ring walk, on the brink of us getting ready to go to the ring and fight one of the biggest fights of our lives, I cannot revise strategy at this point. Put this in a point. Strategy switches when self-doubt shows up. Strategy switches when self-doubt shows up. Usually, a fight like this, right? A fight of this magnitude, right? A fight against depression, a fight against anxiety, a fight against loneliness, a fight against self-doubt and the imposter syndrome. This is one of the biggest fights of our lives. We are no longer on the preliminary card. We are no longer on the undercard. This is a main event that we're getting ready to get to, right? This is a main event. So I don't have time now. After I've greased up, after I've put the gear on, after I've wrapped my fist, after they're getting ready to play my music, I don't have time to switch strategies now. In other words, I'm going in with everything that I know, the lessons that I learned, the disappointment that I felt, the heartbreak that I felt, the abortion that I had. Listen, I'm talking to somebody right now. Every time I was ever doubted, every time I was rejected, every time that I was told no, I'm coming to the ring with all of this knowledge, and I formulated the strategy last week. So now I'm not going to put this on my mentality. I'm not going to allow this to allow me to become a procrastinator. I'm not overthinking in this moment. I am not doubting my judgment in this moment. I am getting ready to walk to the ring, and I'm getting ready to win. And I'm going to look to my cut men. I'm going to look to my trainers. I'm going to look to my coaches to pour back into me, because at the end of the day, I've dealt with all of these things all of my life. I've dealt with these things for generations. I've dealt with these things for years, and I'm tired. So now that I've decided to fight, I've applied to fight, I have trained to fight, and I have arrived at fight night, I'm going to take all of that chaos and I'm going to ball it all up. And we're getting ready to go to the ring, and we're getting ready to throw some punches and bunches. And the chaos is going to turn to combos, and the combos are going to make me champion. Let me move. And finally, no pre-fight mental talk. No pre-fight mental talk. Now, this might sound counterproductive. But put this in a point. I train to not have to talk myself into toughness. I train to not have to talk myself into toughness. Now, usually what happens for people getting ready to fight, right? They begin to hype themselves up. Think back to not even fighting on this level. Think back to your schoolyard fights, right? You had to hype yourself up to get into it, right? You had to push me, blah, 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 your mama, blah, blah, right? Listen, y'all gonna in the chat, y'all gonna act like that I'm the only person that got in the schoolyard fight. Okay, so when in high school or in grade school, coming up, right? You had to talk yourself into fights. Right? No, man, he ain't about to talk to me like that. You ain't about to do me like that. You start saying your last name. I'm such and such. For those of us that were affiliated with some not so scrupulous characters, right? I'm such and such. Da 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 da. On the set, right? But when you're taking on a fight of this magnitude, the pre-fight talk actually raises your blood pressure. It raises your anxiety level. People learning how to think in a way that heals is the same thing. It becomes your first. Bang. There we go. That's exactly the point. Did you steal my notes? Because I've trained and I've conditioned and I have muscle memory now. The victories that I've amassed coming up to this, right? The dedication to my training. The perseverance, the resilience that I've had to display to lead me up into this point have actually become first nature to me. So there's no need for me to, right when I get ready to go to the ring, all right, Dewan, this is it. I'm only adding anxiety to myself. I'm making the moment larger than what it needs to be. And a lot of us, this is our problem. We look at a few issues in our lives, and because we see a lot of them, because the lights are shining bright now, because we seem to have more at stake than we've ever had before. But every day that you wake up, you have more at stake because you become more valuable every day. In other words, I make the issue bigger than what it needs to be instead of relying on what my nature is, instead of relying on what my new conditioning, my new mindset, my new level of resilience, my new boundaries, my new discernment, my new intuition, instead of relying on that as my first nature, just like No Waste of Time just said, instead of relying on that as my first nature, I don't need to talk myself into being tough. I'm built this way now. I'm different now. I'm him now, or her. I'm her now, for the ladies out there. Right? When we start to talk ourselves into being tough, or talk ourselves into being able to swing, we add more anxiety and stress to the situation instead of just allowing it to happen. In other words, if I'm going to get into this fight, and this is really the point. This is really the point of this entire session. It's fight night, and I just have to act natural. I have to rely on my experience, my wisdom, my discernment. Just like I say when I close out every live. Just like I say, we have to rely on those things, the things that makes us rare and valuable, to add to the vision and to bring victory. That's it for the session. But I want to do something right now. This is going to sound weird, right? But I feel like I need to do this. I want to make a declaration, and I want y'all to join me. I need y'all to join me here. And you're behind a screen, so nobody's going to see you. But I need y'all to stand with me on something. I need y'all to make this declaration with me. And after you've said this to yourself, like out loud, or, if you're in public, right, don't just go be talking to yourself, right? But we're going to make this declaration together. And after we make this declaration, if you did this and you are going to operate in this mindset, just put a boxing glove emoji in the chat. For those of y'all that are listening, that are going to make this declaration, say this with me. I will fight for my peace. I will fight for my purpose. I will fight through my problems and not allow my past to further pause my purpose. From this day forward, I promise to fight for what I deserve and what I desire. If you said that with me and you believe it and you're going to operate like this forever going forward, put the boxing gloves in the chat. Let me see you. We're gonna hold one another accountable. We're going to be each other's accountability system. We're not going to allow the past to pause our purpose any longer. We're going to fight back. And if you haven't tapped into week 1 and 2, they're on YouTube. They're available on YouTube. The link is in my bio. But this declaration is our battle cry from now on. No more. No more sitting back and allowing life to continue to hit us. No more of allowing things that we've done or things that we've said or decisions that we've made to stop us from pursuing